What's up, guys? We are again Pop Culture Corner, and I'm Troy, joined by
Matt and Ethan.
And today we got a lot of trailers to talk about, as well as a few movie news and some video game news. So let's just jump right into it, guys, with the new movies coming out this week, Ghost in the Shell. It's based off, I'm not fully aware of the actual baseline from it. It's either an anime or was it a graphic novel?
It was both, thing? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was really popular as an animated movie. It was like it's considered by many to be like one of like the best anime movies of all time. So this movie had like a lot to live up to, and it wasn't off to a great start in terms of reception by fans, mostly because of the choice to cast Scarlett Johansson as the lead character, even though it's traditionally been portrayed as an Asian actress.
I mean, I understand there is a big whitewashing problem in Hollywood and everything when they're making these movies, but when it's taken off of an animation like cartoons and things, like I get it, it's Japanese animation, but is it really crucial that they are Japanese? And I'm not trying to sound insensitive. I really don't know.
Well, see,
is it?
I think the reason that they could have defended making a choice by casting Asian actors or actresses in the film would be that, to my understanding, the story itself does take place in Japan. So by that extension, many of the characters featured in the story are Japanese. Mm-hmm. And it's upset a lot of people that there are Japanese actors and actresses in the movie, but the star power lies with, white American actors. And I can definitely understand some of the frustration whenever you're presenting a story that's so rooted in Japanese culture and setting.
Right, and this hasn't been the first time this issue has been brought up. In Doctor Strange, for example, there was a lot of people had problems with the casting of, just like overall the idea of having like the white savior type thing to begin with, and then when you have like Tilda Swinton being cast as Asian male, which is throwing people off a bit. So I don't know. I think it kind of comes down to the fact that like the star power in Hollywood really lies with like white American actors. Mm-hmm. So it's like they feel like they can't really sell a movie well enough if it's an Asian actress being portrayed.
I really do feel like that's the case. But I feel like the case with when Doctor Strange, though, they had enough star power with Benedict Cumberbatch and Rachel McAdams. Like, they had enough star power to get them to attracted to it. Now, with Ghost in the Shell, like, with someone like me who's not, like, I've watched a few anime things, but I'm not super into it. With people looking at that, Scarlett Johansson maybe is a choice to get people in the seats and maybe get it out there. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like that is a problem. Like, if whitewashing wouldn't occur, if we were to put more, like, Asians or people of color in those roles, they'd have those bigger names and draw that star power. So I can definitely see that argument. But I mean,
it's an interesting thing, and it's not something that's going to go away. Netflix just recently released the trailer for their adaptation of the anime and manga Death Note, which has taken the concept of the story and completely transplanted it into an all-American setting with all-American actors, which has got a lot of people just as angry.
See, I feel that's different though, because they're actually changing the material. It's not like Ghost in the Shell where you're having a white American actress living in Tokyo, okay, with everybody else being Asian. This is actually changing the material and fitting it into a Western type setting.
Is it going to be live action, or is this also going to be animated?
It will be live action. That's
yes.
correct.
Okay, so keep going. So it's going to be changing, like what exactly?
Well, it's just the changing of the setting in general, I feel, makes it like less obvious that it's whitewashing and more so like they're trying to tell a new like version of their story.
But some people could say that by translating the story at all, that's whitewashing in and of itself.
That is true.
All right, well, let's move on to a little bit more of some happier topics. We got a lot of good trailers coming out this week. And first of all, I want to talk about Spider-Man, because I'm a big superhero guy. And this new one it had a very much a different tone. Like, it was a lot more of the darker side. The first one was very light and happy, as Spider-Man should be. Like, that's one of my favorite parts about Tom Holland's portrayal is he's actually joking a majority of the time while he's fighting. Like, that to me is more Spider-Man than anybody else has. And I love Tobey Maguire's. Andrew Garfield was okay, but I feel like Tom Holland really brings it up. And with this new trailer being a little bit more on the dramatic side, it kind of shows a big picture of it. And I
can definitely tell that, like, with these trailers, somebody's really trying to push the fact that this is the MCU version of Spider-Man. This isn't Spider-Man going solo, okay? We have Iron Man appearing in the trailer. We have Captain America. We've already seen, references to the Avengers in the previous trailer. So they're really trying to push this, enclosed universe, something that previous Spider-Man movies haven't had. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I've heard as an issue with this most recent trailer is that it shows too much. And what do you guys think?
Well, I think that it's a common complaint you're always going to hear with superhero movies, but at the end of the day, Marvel movies, as good as they tend to be, tend to stick to a certain kind of formula, and if people are upset about too much of that formula being given away, I don't really get what the complaint is. And I think that what we're seeing is enough of new innovation in terms of a hero we love that'll keep people happy, but I don't think the story gave away too much that you might not have already been able to figure out for yourself going into it.
I agree. I don't feel like they gave away a lot. I feel like it was actually a very good trailer, got me very excited. Like, the last thing we saw, a tidbit of who the bad guy was supposed to be in Vulture, and now we actually got to see, okay, it really is Vulture. It's like, because people were comparing it to like the Batman v Superman trailer, when it's like, oh my god, like, they showed what's his name?
Doomsday.
Yeah.
They showed Doomsday. Oh crap! Well, now everybody knows how it's going to end. Like, so this still leaves it kind of up in the air. So I feel like it was very good.
Yeah.
But and up in the air, one of the biggest shows coming out right now that everybody's been waiting for, been pushed to the summer. Game of Thrones dropped a small little tidbit teaser of our 3 main kings and queens walking to their thrones alone. I am so excited for Game of Thrones.
Especially when you watch the ending to that, when you see how, like, you know, it's acknowledging the fact that none of this, like, bureaucracy, like, fighting matters when you have the White Walkers on the horizon. They are the real threat. And will Westeros be prepared if Dany's coming over? She's trying to take over the kingdom, okay? If they're fighting with each other, will they be able to tackle on the real enemy? And that's going to be what's really going to be the most interesting part of these next few seasons.
And it's interesting to me that this trailer got me as hyped as it did. It's a perfect example of how you can say so much by saying absolutely nothing at all. There was no dialogue in the trailer to speak of. It was just all dramatic tracking shots. And by the time it was over, even someone who's in a love-hate relationship with the Game of Thrones was really excited to see where they can take it this next season. And it really puts into perspective just how far the show has come and how far these characters, the surviving characters that is, have come in the series, and I'm admittedly pretty excited to see what happens this season.
And I think the weird thing, there's some, like, I think there's little things that they did to make them, like, ask questions, because one of the big things I noticed was literally watching at the very end of the trailer, Cersei was breathing cold air. Like, I feel like that's something big. Like, I could just be reading into it a little bit more, but she's breathing cold air going right into the White Walker's eye. I feel like that's, like, definitely saying something.
I think it's saying that winter has come, and you know, if you've stuck with the books at all, by the end of the most recently published book, snow has just begun to fall in King's Landing, which is where Cersei now sits as queen. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle not only each other, but the larger threat of the White Walkers and dozens of feet of snow that could last for decades on top of that.
Yeah, and we also had this week drop of a very major game, so we're going to move into the gaming world now with Destiny 2. Now, I liked Destiny 1 when it first came out for a long time. It did feel a little bit repetitive to me. Like, after a while, I was just like, okay, there's this little bit, and then you had the DLC, of course, that brought it up. But Destiny 2 looks like it's going to be a lot more of a story-oriented game, which feels kind of fun. Like, I really enjoyed the trailer, even if it's just a small little 2 pep talks, like really ridiculous. I feel like it's setting up for something fun.
Yeah, the trailer was honestly, like, very funny. Like, I really wasn't expecting it to be as, like, comedic as it was, but, like, that just, even though I never played the first Destiny game, that's kind of, like, sold me to the series just by that trailer alone. Just like how he was like, you know, oh yeah, let's go all band together. Nobody wants to join him. And there's loot. And then that's what gets everybody to vote, to, like, cheer for him. So I don't know, that's part of what, like, makes this series just so, like, fun to me.
And I thought the trailer was refreshing because we're in a time now where video games take themselves very, very seriously, and that's sometimes to their detriment.
Yeah.
And what was nice about this trailer is they kind of catered to both schools of thought. You had one character giving a very dramatic, very cinematic speech, and the other who was giving a little bit more lighthearted, bantery kind of speech. And I think it really kind of played to the audience. The people that like Destiny liked it because they like to play with their friends, they like to get loot together. And it kind of speaks to that communal nature of playing a video game together, which Destiny is really built upon. And even if it was just a teaser and I never played the original Destiny, it made me interested to see where it can go.
I'd highly recommend playing the original Destiny first. You never want to jump into a sequel beforehand. But again, like, it's very fun, and I can't wait to see what they improve on with that type of, like, you know, first-person shooter. That's really good. Now we're going to go ahead and move into a little bit of something that came out last night on April Fool's Day. I personally didn't hear about it until you guys sent it in our little group me. Rick and Morty Season 3. Just kind of, was it really produced, like, shown that it was going to come out yesterday? I was just like, hey guys, Here we go.
Yeah, it sort of just dropped. Nobody was expecting it, and even when people saw it, they were like, "Is this real? Is this some like April Fool's prank?" Because it's like it's so weird to have something debut on April Fool's Day. Okay, without telling them beforehand. But I watched it, and it is like so Rick and Morty. It was so funny. Okay, the writing was so smart. It really makes me want to look into those Mulan chicken nugget dips that they had at McDonald's. Apparently, they were only released in 1998, and they haven't come out since.
Huh.
And I really want to try some now because they sound really good.
So without giving too much away, did they end up resolving the massive cliffhanger that season 2 ended on?
Yeah.
Well, what I did see on Twitter was that the creators tweeted out after the episode finished airing that there's going to be more to come in the summer. So this wasn't a definitive series premiere. This was just kind of a taste of what's to come.
Something to whet our appetite so that we can get into it later on.
Which is good because there's been a lot of, not controversy, but a lot of questions over how the production of the season's coming. There's been rumors of trouble writing it. Only recently have we heard they started to sit down and draw the thing. So I think it's good for them to address how things are going in the best way they can, which is just by giving us a whole new episode. So I still have to watch it, admittedly.
Yeah.
Like, I still thought it was like a bit of a, like, even more, that's a troll. If they're just giving us a taste right now, it's like, why? Why? I would rather just wait until it's all finished. But I mean, of course, everybody loves to get some watch them Rick and Morty, but it's like, oh.
We're in the era of the surprise drop, man. I mean, Beyonce does it, Drake does it. People just like to catch you off guard, especially if it's something they know you're going to like. And Rick and Morty is, well, different from Beyonce, but, you know, not so different in the way they've chosen to go about giving us new material. So.
Yeah, that is very true. All right, well, I think we should move on to our next bit of news on television. Better Call Saul coming back for season 3.
Yes.
Now, I honestly, I watched season 1, and I honestly wasn't that interested in it. I mean, the pacing was just way too slow for me. There just wasn't a lot going on there. I mean, even though I'm glad that they're bringing Gus back to season 3, and that kind of, revamps my interest in the show again, I don't know. I just don't think that this series really even has any reason to exist.
No.
What do you think?
Well, I definitely think it has reason to exist, and I think that if you stick with it, you can see that it's a very different kind of series than Breaking Bad is.
Yeah.
And I will admit that it is pretty slow-paced, and even by the standards of Breaking Bad, season 2 did drag at parts, but I think that it only feels slow if you watch it week to week. I mean, so many of us who were into Breaking Bad had the luxury of getting to watch a season or 2 in a row on Netflix when you could just binge episode after episode, and you didn't notice that Breaking Bad itself moves pretty slowly and only really gets interesting in the action sense towards the end of each season. And I'll admit that Better Call Saul has a lot to make up for, being that last season was a little lackluster in terms of overall story. But I think what they've done in classic Breaking Bad fashion is setting up a lot of dominoes, and they're going to get ready to knock them all down at any minute here.
I just feel like it's one of those shows that the reason it did so well in season 1 was because it was riding fresh off the coattails of Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
A lot of these spin-off series, it's like, well, why? I only watched bits and pieces of Breaking Bad. I never sat down and watched the full thing.
Really?
Yeah, I know. I never really watched the full thing, but again, he was kind of just not really a big deal, but he was just he was just his lawyer, right? He didn't show up that often.
Just his lawyer. He was a criminal partner of his too. I mean,
okay. Well,
don't get me wrong. There's reason to be skeptical about Better Call Saul, and I am probably in the minority at this point in defending it. But I do think that if you like good dark humor and you like really well-developed character dramas, I think there's something in Better Call Saul to be had. Even though comparing it to Breaking Bad will probably only leave you really disappointed.
Right. I feel like it's the kind of show that I'll wait till the over and then I'll just binge it on Netflix one weekend, probably. Yeah. That's how it's going to roll.
Yeah, I don't think it's one of those shows that necessarily, again, really needed its existence because it's one of those, you need to really know who this character is. So you need to
get into it.
To even get into it.
Yeah,
so
you need to watch Breaking Bad to even watch Better Call Saul, so that leaves you out of luck.
Exactly. So it's not really a big standalone show, in my opinion. And I guess that might be why one of the reasons it's failed was because people try to Breaking Bad, maybe I'll give this a shot too, see what happens. And I don't know. But that's what we got to look forward to this week, guys. That's it for us this week. This is Pop Culture Corner. Once again, I'm Troy.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Ethan.
And we will see you guys next week.
Hello everybody, my name is Elise.
My name is Matt.
And we're here today talking about a bi-weekly horror podcast called Lore. It's hosted by Aaron Mahnke, and it's a multiple award-winning podcast. It shares nonfiction scary stories and their historical origins.
You might like lore if you're interested in history, or if you're interested in scary stories. There's a little bit of both, and honestly, what's the difference between the both in every episode? And you might also like it if you're interested in projects that explore the darker side of human nature, and if you're fascinated by that insight, lore might just be the podcast for you.
We really like it because it holds your attention for the whole 20 to 30 minute episode, and it's well researched and well compiled. And it also has a very campfire scary story feel to it.
That's personally what I liked about it the most. It reminded me a lot of hearing scary stories that I liked growing up, seated around the campfire, staying up late at night, and it really kind of harkens back to that communal experience. And we've got a few episode recommendations if you've never even listened to it before that you might want to check up on.
You might want to check out episode 38, The Mountain, which deals with a college hiking trip in the former Soviet Union that takes a horrible turn when the hikers are discovered later dead and mutilated.
Or you might want to check out episode 34, All the Lovely Ladies, which tells the story of Elizabeth Bathory, who is the origin for many common vampire folklore traditions and also the inspiration for several different horror movie villains.
But if we didn't sell you on the podcast form of the show, check it out next fall on Amazon Prime.
That's right. And if you are interested in podcasts, now would be a great time to tell you that if you're interested in catching up on Pop Culture Corner on the go, you can download a podcast version of the show on iTunes.